Welcome to Simply Business. I'm your host, Taylor Lee, and I'm so excited to have you here. As a business consultant, I've helped countless business owners simplify their strategies and achieve their goals, and now I'm here to bring you this expertise right to your ears. Each episode, I'll be sharing tips and strategies to help you achieve your business goals without the overwhelm. I will also be chatting with business owners and industry experts to share their stories, insights, and lessons they've learned along the way. Let's dive in and simplify your business. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Simply Business, and happy International Women's Day. And I know this episode is being uploaded a tiny bit late, but I wanted to just celebrate that this is the month of International Women's Day and being a woman in business, and obviously being you as a listener. Most likely, we have about 90% of our listeners are women. I just want to take a moment to celebrate you, and I'm so excited to dive into today's episode, which is on theme. Today's episode is all about being taken seriously as a woman in business, because it's quite often that I find that women in business struggle to be taken seriously, and also to another layer on that, being taken seriously as a young woman in business. And age has been something that I've personally had to navigate through in business and being taken seriously. And it's been something that has definitely been a struggle. It's not something that's been huge at the forefront, but I truly believe I have hacked the system in terms of being taken seriously. And I want to dive into today's episode of the things that you can implement and the things that you have full control over when it comes to being taken seriously as a woman in business. Now, this is going to go into a few key areas, and I have my notes up in front of me. So if you see me glancing on my phone, that is exactly why. So the first one that I want to go into is your presentation. So I'm going to break this down into a few key areas: your appearance, articulation, and your body language. Now, your visual presentation visually communicates how seriously you should be taken. Now, if we have two extremes at either ends of the spectrum, if we have someone that is well presented, puts effort into her makeup, her hair, her outfit, her presentation, and it doesn't have to look like your typical business owner where that she's got a blazer on and all of these things, but if you put effort into your appearance and your presentation versus someone on the opposite end of the spectrum that has an old kind of t-shirt on, like a messy bun, there's no real effort in presentation. Even taking this podcast as an example, right? I'm presented well, my hair's done, my makeup's done, I'm in nice lighting. That instantly visually communicates authority versus being in my bedroom, no lighting, shit lighting, and you can quote unquote tick the box and do the exact same thing, but the delivery is so different. And it's not about changing yourself. It's not about altering how that you look. I'm not saying that you need to go get Botox and filler and, change your wardrobe, but there is a lot that you have the power of choice with when it comes to your appearance. Now, the next one is your articulation. Now, again, we don't need to be these articulated news reporters on our socials, on our podcast, whatever it might be, but a skill set that is so important is how you articulate yourself. And it's not about opening this dictionary and pulling on these words that people don't even know what they mean, but you need to practice a skill set of articulation. And when I see clients that perform really, really well in their business, when it's presenting on a podcast, when it's them getting on their stories, someone that has confidence in delivery in the way in which that they're able to actually speak makes such a world of difference. And I was always, and I still am, quite shy when it comes to public speaking. Public speaking rattles me. Speaking in front of the class in school, rattles me. Right? I'm not someone that I would identify with being super, super, super well articulated. When I interview guests on podcasts, I'm still that didn't sound great. But what matters is the practice and the delivery. And I was actually listening to a podcast recently where she was saying, going live or doing recordings, she would literally have a Telegram prompter to be able to say what she wanted to say. And I can appreciate that it's hard to get on socials, it's hard to get on a podcast and speak, but it's a skill set that needs to be built in order to be someone that is trusted. If you get on a client call and you can't articulate yourself, if you can't speak properly, or the way in which that you're presenting on a podcast or whatever it might be, that's a problem that you're going to face. And this is a perfect example is right now, I have notes. I'm prepared, right? I don't want this to be a waffle of a podcast, but I can take the note of articulation and go with it. And that's my only prep for everything that I've just said, right? So articulation is something that you need to practice. Speak in the mirror. I don't know about you, but I used to be obsessed with YouTubers when I was little. And like whenever I would cook like banana bread at home or cook some muffins or cookies, like I would pretend I was on a YouTube channel. I was like, okay, now we're using like this ingredient, like, and 50 grams of butter, and you're going to do this, that, and the other. Like practice speaking and put it online. Go live, go on your stories, create the podcast. Like I would hate to listen to my first few podcast episodes, even a podcast episode I recorded a few months ago, because I'm truly committed to growing and evolving, and that's only going to happen through practice. If you want to be taken seriously as a woman in business, this is going to be so important, because if you can't have an intellectual conversation where you can articulate yourself, it's not going to support you being taken seriously. Like, is it going to be the be all and end all? Probably not. But is your articulation going to make a huge difference? Absolutely, right? The next point is our body language. Now, if you walk into a room and you are super closed off, you're super standoffish, like you can see, like, as I say that, like my body language is closing up. If I'm recording this podcast right now and I'm like sitting back here and I'm like, hey, welcome, I'm like hiding behind the microphone, like you're not going to take me seriously. But you can see right now I'm sitting upward, my shoulders are back, I have eye contact with the lens, like my body language, I'm speaking with my hands. It makes such a big difference to being able to be taken seriously in business. So this is going to be something that you feel like might be so minor, but this has such a big compounding effect with how seriously that people take you in business. And what's cool in this is just this alone, my articulation, my body language, my appearance. I am 23 at the time of recording this, at least. My birthday's still ages away at the time of recording this. But when I tell people my age, when I say I'm 23, when I say I've got this, that, and the other, people are like, no fucking way. Like, you're close to 30. And I don't take offense to that because I get it and I understand it. And there's levels of maturity in who I am and how I present. And that's not from a perspective of like, I try to be mature. I just am with what we associate with maturity, right? I'm emotionally intelligent. Like I've done this work, and my parents would always push me to be someone that would go up and have to articulate myself and have to speak, even when it was really uncomfortable. I remember 2 examples I can think of with this. I reckon I was like 7, like I was in like fresh into school. And one thing my parents always made me do was we would always go to the bakery to get our bread. And I would always have to order. I'd have to speak to the baker and say, hey, can I have a slice of wholemeal, like a wholemeal loaf, and have it thickly sliced? And then I would do like the money transaction. And my parents would never speak. They'd be there with me, of course. Like it wasn't that I had to go and do this stuff by myself. But what it taught me was how to communicate, how to say exactly what I wanted. And it's something I see with people that had like their parents that ordered for them at a restaurant. I can tell with how that people articulate themselves. If you take ages and you ponder and you're like, and you don't just say what you want and you know what you want, there's a huge separation between those types of people. So how can you push yourself in uncomfortable environments? That's how you're going to strengthen your articulation and your confidence, is putting yourself in environments, whether it's going to networking events, whether it's going to retreats, whatever it might be, going on podcasts, starting your own podcast, where you are going to feel uncomfortable, right? Before batch recording my guest episodes, starting from yesterday, I was nervous, right? It was edgy. There was people on my podcast. It was my podcast. And I wanted to make sure that I could present myself to be something that I was proud of. I could have chosen that and gone, oh, but it's uncomfortable. Maybe I'm not ready yet. I just chose to do the thing. And guess what? I'm walking away from bulk recording feeling so much more confident in my articulation, my delivery, my ability to have an intellectual conversation and ask questions. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. Would you be able to tell from all the guest episodes as they go live? Probably not. Would you be able to tell that I was nervous? Probably not, right? So this is why practice is so important. So that's the visual side of things. Now the next one is your assets and your services, right? And establishing credibility. Because when we think about someone that we trust, a brand that we trust, a person that we trust, there's a level of credibility, right? And this is so important. If you see a brand that you want to work with, right? Or you want to purchase a product. If then you go onto their website and it looks like this dingy website, right? It's weird to click through. The images of the product are a bit dingy. Like, sorry, but I'm simply not purchasing from you, right? And I'm certainly not taking your brand seriously first and foremost. And this is something I've had I've seen advice where it's like, you don't need the professional branding and imagery, you don't need the website, you don't need this, you don't need the logos and all of the things. And whilst I can appreciate and understand exactly where that's coming from, I simply disagree. Because especially if you're new to the industry, yes, you don't need to be blowing bucket loads of cash on websites and brand shoots and all of the things, but you do need to make an investment in being taken seriously. And the reason being is that's what's going to create separation between you and your competitors. Because especially when you're fresh to the industry, when you're fresh to starting a business, you need to make those investments to be taken seriously. Because when I've got someone that's got some iPhone random shots and you can tell that there's no strategy and it's on this slap together website, that is very different to a website that at least has some cohesive branding, has some professional imagery, and you can meet yourself where you're at. You don't need the full kit caboodle, like all of the things. I have designed all of my website. The last time I had a professional branding shoot, there was one that was like a part of an event that I went to, but most of my website imagery is from nearly a year ago, right? And I'm someone that has the money to invest in it, but I still am being resourceful, right? And I'm still intentional with where I invest. But the most important thing is I don't pretend that that's not important, because it absolutely is. And it's the compliment I get when people come to, whether it's consuming my podcast, whether it's landing on my website, whether it's the onboarding forms that they get, the delivery of my service, my servicing, and how I deliver my service. People trust me, and it's something that impresses them, and it's something that creates separation between me and my competitors and someone that has a slap together website, right? And I want you to note with this, there is such levels of discernment with, you don't need to go and do all of the things, right? So a perfect example where I think people get too caught up to the point that it actually stops them from moving and stops them from doing the thing is, okay, I need this, I need that, I need this. Okay, I'm going to need all this cash flow. I'm going to need this, that, and the other. You don't need to make it 25 layers deep. Just ask yourself, how can I meet myself where I'm at? And with the resources that I have, what can I do? Can you collab with an up and coming photographer to get some content, right? My first ever shoot was with one of my best friend's mums who was in photography, and she took photos for me, right? So it's like, how could I be resourceful? She didn't charge me. I got like her a $100 City K voucher or something like that in exchange. So how can you be resourceful? Not just settle, but how can you be resourceful? My podcast, right? I'm even recording into a camera. This is my camera that I'm recording on actually for this one. I did vlog footage. I recorded my podcast on my iPhone with a good mic. That's what I invested in. And like a Rode mic. Like, it still wasn't this like full setup. It wasn't a studio until it made sense to. I got 10,000 downloads of my podcast. Then it was the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to bring guests in. I'm going to record at this studio. I'm going to do all these things. Even still, I'm smart and I'm intentional. This has been a dry hire of the studio. I've brought my own SD cards, used the equipment, the space, the cameras, and then I've invested in someone to do the editing for me, right? So yes, there's other, like I could fully send it, but I still meet myself where I'm at every step of the way. So I want you to take that lesson of being intentional with how that you're delivering your content, your podcast, your imagery, your branding, your website, as it's so important to focus on, but equally you don't need to send it to 5,000 layers deep. And I want you to know that. So ask yourself, how can I start and just audit everything that people can visually see and the experience people get from your service, and audit what can be improved, not from the energy of like, this will make people take me more seriously, because it'll feel like an imposter syndrome kind of energy of like this proving energy, but just audit it from a general lens and go, okay, I can probably improve this. And I don't actually have to have tens of thousands of dollars to improve this. I can just be more intentional. I can make my website a little bit better. Like, how can you actually just clean up what people are seeing and what people are experiencing with your business? Because that will make you be taken so much more seriously. And at the end of the day, that's the important thing that matters in business. You're not going to actually get business if people don't take you seriously in the first place. Okay, my next point is your strategic data-backed decisions. Now, this is something I feel like for women in business as well, we're really sold this narrative in like the feminine-led era that we need to trust our intuition and like things will just work out for us. And, we don't need to like just insert all of the fluff and the bullshit, to be quite frank. We need to understand our numbers as a female in business, right? Business is a numbers game, period. And if you are running a business and you want to be taken seriously running a business and you have no idea what your profitability is, if you have no idea what your revenue, what your expenses are, of course you're not going to be taken seriously. And more importantly, you are going to feel like you're not running a serious, legitimate business. It's going to feel like a hobby. And you're wondering why you can't grow it because you haven't actually taken the responsibility that you need as a business owner, as a female business owner. So I want this to be a really important lesson for you to actually look at how can I better understand my numbers? And I know it's hard with all of the things you have to consider. You're busy providing the service, you're doing all of the things, but prioritize education around numbers. And most importantly, this will allow you to make strategic, data-backed, informed decisions, right? So when I know my numbers, I'm going to give you an example with this podcast and bulk recording. Because I've been tracking my numbers and have an understanding of what's converting leads, what's actually working when people come to me and sign as a client, the most common pattern, and I track this, is I discovered you or I've followed you for ages and then I saw you did a podcast on this or you had this person on your podcast and I listened to the podcast episodes or I saw you did this and then you said something with podcasts, like 80% podcast is mentioned. I know from that data, my podcast is the thing that's working for me right now, right? And this is a perfect example too of being able to meet yourself where you're at. That I never had a professionally produced podcast. I'm still somewhat DIYing this. Like now only am I bringing in a team member to help me with my marketing and podcast, right? Now I can look at that and go, okay, my podcast is the thing that's generating results. I have data for that. So then I can make a strategic and data-informed decision to invest more time, energy, and money into my podcast because I know it works for me. And this is where business will feel really fucking confusing. You will feel really dysregulated in your business and feel like you are just constantly throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks if you don't know the data and you don't know what's working and what's not working for you in your business, right? So if I was potentially doing my podcast and I was doing ads, right? I'm investing into both and my podcast is the thing working for me. Why am I investing into ads, right? So you need to understand and have awareness of numbers and stop being blind to the numbers in your business so you can make those data-informed decisions so you can take your business more seriously and it can actually generate better results for you, right? Really, really important. So whatever it is, whether it's your sales, your marketing, customer feedback, please make sure that you're actually tracking this data, especially even in the customer feedback point of things. If you don't have data about the results that you're getting your clients and beyond just a before and after photo or, a quick testimonial message, if you're not tracking that data, people aren't going to take you seriously. If you've got me and I've got my story highlights and on my website, client A came to me with this problem and we solved it through this method and these were her results. And I've got that 10 times over versus a direct competitor. And it's like, I loved working with Sally. She was so kind and I had a great experience. And that 10 times over, especially as an analytical and a driver buyer, which is your more masculine type buyers, that's what they care about, right? So you need to be tracking that data and those numbers in your business as well to be taken more seriously. The next thing that you could be doing in this as well is market research. And this is going to be the thing that allows you to feel so much more knowledgeable around your business, your industry, and your clients is doing market research. Because when you do market research and you have knowledge to support the moves that you're making, and you just have knowledge, like knowledge is power, right? You are going to be taken so much more seriously. And like I have said 5,000 times over already, you're most importantly going to take your business more seriously. When I started implementing actual market research, being that I was literally reaching out to ideal dream clients, jumping on calls with them, getting them to fill out a form for me where I was asking strategic, very intentional questions, when I was looking through my competitors, understanding what was working for them, what was not working for them, what people were asking in their comment section, putting polls on my Instagram that were very strategic and intentional, seeing what messaging worked, what messaging didn't work. Doing research and putting actual time, energy, and effort into research, I was able to truly skyrocket my business because, again, I had so much data and knowledge to be able to make moves that made sense, right? Because half of the time too, it's not about all of the things that we think we need to be doing, right? We need to be posting more content. We need to be doing X. We need to be doing Y. We need to be doing all of these things that we convince ourselves that we need to do. It's actually quite simple, and it's in the small moments, and it's in the things that are literally right under our nose as a business owner that actually matters. Like, you don't need to be posting more on Instagram if you don't even know who your ideal client is and the challenges that they're facing and the frustrations that they're facing on a daily basis, what they've tried, what's worked, what's not worked, what solution they're actively looking for, what they'd be willing to invest in that solution. If you don't know that, maybe just back off the frequency that you're posting on Instagram, because you're literally digging a deeper hole in your business, right? Because you're posting all of this content that's not relevant to your ideal client, right? And you wonder why you can't get leads. You wonder why you can't get sales and no one's taking you seriously. But is it really that no one's taking you seriously? Or is it that you have no strategy, no data to back the moves that you're making, right? You will be unfuckwithable. You will be a leader in what you're doing. You will sign clients with ease when you start prioritizing being a business owner that looks at data and numbers and then makes strategically and data-backed informed decisions. Cool? So my last point that I wanted to speak about under this decisions side of things is testing. Now, I've got a stat for you here. Businesses that use data-driven decision-making are 5 times more likely to make faster decisions. Data gives you the confidence to pivot and optimize your business without second guessing. Now, what I want to speak about this is the testing and pivoting side of things, because a lot of the time too, when I say data and strategic backed decisions, a lot of people get married to the strategy and the concept. And it's important to also give strategies a go, right? Because strategies aren't going to work if you're changing them every 4 seconds because they're not working, right? There needs to be a period where you actually let the strategy do its thing. But equally, there's a huge piece in really being able to, when you're analyzing this data, be able to pivot where you need to pivot. So I could have mapped out a strategy for a launch of a digital product for a one-on-one service offering, whatever it might be. I might want to add a new arm to my business of a service. If I don't understand the data, it's going to be something that I'm winging. And B, if I don't allow myself to analyze the performance as I implement said strategic decisions, and if I don't allow myself to pivot, it's going to keep me stuck. So this is where people see strategy as a huge limitation, where it's only a limitation for as long as you're married to a strategy that has no flexibility and no ability to shift and pivot with you. So that's something else I want to touch on is, and I say this to clients quite often when they come to me and they're like, what's the thing for my socials? What's the thing for my launch? What's the thing? I'm like, allow it to be a time where you're collecting and you're testing data. And this is a perfect example where working with me, you're not just going to get the strategy. Yes, I'm going to give you the strategy, but I'm also going to give you the skill set and the knowledge to deeply understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. So you can do that. You can trial, you can test, so then you can actually get the best results possible, right? That's what working with me. It's not just giving you this blueprint, because it doesn't work like that. I can't give client A the same blueprint as client B. And if you're going to someone where you're getting the same blueprints and the people that you see online that all look the same in their content, it's because the coach per se doesn't understand the why behind strategies, and just it's that mentor role, right? Because they're the mentor and that's what worked for them. This should work for my clients, which yes, sometimes the results will repeat, but is it the way in which that the client actually wants to build their business, how they want to generate said results? Or is it just because that's all that you know? Where what actual strategy is about is understanding the client, understanding their goals, understanding their frustrations, reverse engineering a customized strategy from there, being able to implement that and go, okay, here's the knowledge that we need to be able to trial, to be able to test, to be able to understand what's going to best work for you. Because I can guarantee 9 times out of 10, the first thing you do won't always generate the best possible results. Yes, it will generate results. It should generate results, right? Sometimes it won't, and that's perfect and fine depending on where you're at in your business journey and in your journey with whatever strategy you're applying. But 9 times out of 10, I can guarantee you can optimize that strategy. And if you're just doing the strategy right, like yes, you'll get results, but this is what I see so often online. You don't know how to then analyze the data and pivot from there. These are all things, and you're probably even listening to this as I'm explaining going, God, I'm taking her pretty seriously. Maybe you're like, oh my God, I want to work with her. There's something to that if you're feeling that on the receiving end of this podcast, right? I'm giving you that credibility. It's how I'm presented right now. I'm speaking about data. There's something to that, that's making you appealed. So I want you to really unpack and just do a bit of an analysis of, okay, based on how I'm currently presenting online, based on the things that I'm showing up and doing, from everything I just gave you, what are 3 things that you can implement instantly? Because I can guarantee there's 3 things you can implement instantly. What are 3 things that you're going to implement over the next 3 to 6 months that's going to allow you to be taken more seriously as a woman in business, but more importantly, feel so much more anchored to the way in which you're approaching and running your business? I hope you got so much out of this episode and you enjoyed. Be sure to tag me if you do share this episode on your stories. Your feedback, your reviews, ratings, following me on Spotify or YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, is so greatly appreciated. It means the world to me. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode. Mwah. And that wraps up another episode of Simply Business. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. If that you enjoyed today's conversation, please feel free to share it onto your socials and tag me. I love seeing all of your shares and feedback on the episode. If that you're feeling extra generous, please feel free to follow me over on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Taylor Lee Consulting, and a like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast would be greatly appreciated. I'll catch you in the next episode.